Hey, what's up? This is Chosen, and with the fragment events kicking off right around the corner, I thought it would be fun. One of the most important questions that people have is, whenever we go into an event with somebody that deals any sort of damage, they want to know how hard they hit. Can I build this person to be a damage dealer, or are we just going straight support? And this is a champion where that's kind of in flux because we've got some support utility, but we've also got the ability to do damage, but it also scales with HP and not like attack. So what I'm going to do in this video is do my best to kind of show you some real in-game example of if I expect this champion to do good damage or not if you build him to do so. And we'll just kind of talk about that in general when we're trying to consider different ways to go about building him once we finish the fragment. That way you have as much information as possible as you head into deciding if this is a champion that you want to YOLO for and go after and all that type of stuff. So let's get into it. Alrighty, so first of all, the screen that I have up here for the intro indicates to you that I am on the test server right now, and that is how I am able to go to the Fusion and have a maxed out version of it ready to do some testing. And you'll see that right now the gear is stripped off because what I did for my testing is I attack the same opponent with a neutral affinity, in this case Void, under the same circumstance, and I do it and I tried to do it to a champion that's pretty comparable and knowable to all of us, which is Sir Nick, the Void legendary right here. So I built him in pretty standard damage gear that you would see, like speed and savage, and then damage dealing masteries, and I put the same exact gear on Sir Nicholas and the fragment summon champion, put them in the exact same situation, and then recorded the footage so we can go over it together, talk about the multipliers that we expect it to be, and be able to see actual example in game of how the damage is kind of occurring on the battlefield. And really quickly, before we get into the in-game footage, why I was talking kind of in the intro about it's important to know how we're going to build this champion in terms of damage or not is because we do damage every single turn with this champion. The A1, the multi-hitter right here. The A2 is the AoE with the HP burn. And then the A3 is going to be that Roto-style single target, ignore defense, hard-hitting ability. So it's important to know how these are going to compare to other HP scaling champions in the game. And Sir Nick is a pretty decent barometer for that, an old school legacy champion that a lot of people are familiar with in terms of the damage that he outputs. He's a decent hitting HP champion. He's not like a nuker like Magnar, but he's definitely a little bit more of a hybrid support utility, half support, half damage type champion. Okay, so now we are loaded into the footage that I want to show you, and we'll do some slow-mo replay, and we'll talk about everything going on. Let me make myself a little bit smaller so you can see this a little bit easier. And I'm going to go ahead and just kind of play it first here, and we'll talk about what's going on. So right now I'm testing the AoE, boom, we're hitting for like 60 or 70k. We'll test the multi-hitter A1, boom, 31, 32k. Now I'm showing you the process, just kind of confirm on camera that this is only a few seconds, but this is like 1000x speed of me kind of going through and making sure I'm looking for the gear and swapping it. Like obviously you can't do the ring and the amulet and the banner, but I tried to get as close as possible by kind of looking them over and then just swapping the gear. And you see that it is now on Sir Nick, and we made the other one naked. There's about 65-ish K, about the same on the AoE, and then 64k on the A1, but it's a single hitter instead of a double hitter, and we saw that they're mostly doing the same damage. When we go through and we kind of look at this is the first clip. This is going to be the AoE. Actually, let me go ahead and take a quick second to get my pen out here so I can illustrate what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm looking at the champion on the far right. Let me make that a little bit bigger. And there we go. Okay, so I'm looking at this champion over on the far right and kind of focusing in on how hard they both hit that Void champion under the exact same circumstance. I'm using Lydia. Let me switch back to the mouse. I'm using Lydia to get the debuffs up, and then I am going to be using the champion to hit this champion on the far right and make sure I monitor that and do some testing. You also have to make sure that in all scenarios, you've got both the defense break and the weaken. Like you can see up here, check on the defense break and check on the weaken. So that is something you definitely have to monitor under all circumstances right here, where we are going to be doing it properly with the AoE and the A1. And then in the Sir Nick testing over here, you can see that we also have the same circumstance with the weaken and the defense break. So then when we rewind this and we play first up the AoE, And boom, you can see we're hitting for 69,000. Now, there is a little bit of leeway. It's usually about 10%. So I would expect we don't know if that's towards the top or the bottom end of the spectrum. But we expect the damage to be somewhere between, you know, like 65 and 75,000 on a typical hit for him. If you assume that's like an average hit, we don't know that for sure. We'd have to get a massive sample size, but this is gonna give you a general idea for how the champion is hitting, because the variance isn't that huge. It's not like double or triple or anything. You get that little like 10% windows. But anyway, we're hitting for 69 on the AoE. Let's go straight over to the Sir Nick AoE and compare each ability, because we know Sir Nick's multipliers. It's going to be 0.25 on each of these abilities. So we've got 0.25 on the A1 and 0.25 on the A2. Whenever a multiplier scales with HP is the highest scaling stat in the game. You'll see champions with like 100,000 HP. So whenever an ability scales with HP, the numbers are super low and they seem like they're a trash multiplier compared to the ones that you're typically used to that are like a 4 or 5 or a 6 or whatever. The HP ones are going to be super low. So 0.25 really isn't that bad. It just looks super low. So now let's compare that to what we were getting here from the AoE that we hit for 69,000 on the far right with our fusion champion. And then we go over to the Sir Nick and look at the champion on the far right, and boom, you can see that we get a 65 right there. So 69 versus 65, and they're wearing essentially the exact same gear with the same masteries. Now whoever wins or loses in that hit between 69 versus 65 could change a little bit if you get a higher sample size, but it looks like essentially on their AoEs they're kind of in that very same tier, neck and neck in terms of AoE damage dealers. And then they both bring a different utility besides that. With Sir Nick, you can see slamming a bunch of shields based on the damage that he does, and then you're going to be getting the HP burns from your fragment champion. And sorry, I keep referring to him as a fragment champion. I don't like saying the word Dreng. It's just like weird for me to say, walking tomb Dreng. So I end up just kind of calling him the fragment champion. But yeah, Dreng is his name technically. So then we're going to go ahead and compare the A1s. So if we get the A1 on Dreng, I'll make sure to say that. A1 over there on the far right, and boom, it's going to be a double hitter. So it's going to function a little bit different than Sir Nick because he's doing a double. We are going to get 32 and then 31 right here. So 32 plus 31, and obviously that's going to be 63K in total in terms of damage output from combining both of the hits on the A1 that happened on that target. Let me fast forward and go back on over to Sir Nick, and right here it's going to load up the A1 and he's going to come in. And remember, his is only a single hitter of 64, so you can see pretty identical when you add up the 2 hits and the 1 hit of Sir Nick. Essentially their damage output is going to be exactly the same. And then they both have a little bit of utility besides that. On the A1, you're going to get the HP burn activation on the on Dreng, and then you are going to get the chance to do an unresistible, irresistible. I don't know which way to properly say that, but you're going to get a freeze that cannot be resisted. So they both have a little bit of extra utility on the A1, but what it's looking like to me is that they both seem to be mostly hitting the same. I would honestly venture to guess that like the multipliers for certain. Let me go ahead and write this down again. So you've got the multipliers for Sir Nick. They're 0.25 on each one of these. Remember, 0.25. I would venture to guess that it's about exactly the same on Dreng. So let me go ahead and back on over to him, clear that out, and pull up his abilities. So on Dreng, I'm thinking, since this is a double hitter, it looked like it was about the same. So this is going to be somewhere between 0.1 and probably like 0.1, 2 or 3. Somewhere in there is going to be the multiplier for the A1, and then the A2. I'm honestly going to guess it's exactly the same. It looks like it's a nice simple round number of a 0.25, but that means we have to still test the A3 because we didn't have one to compare on Sir Nick. So what I'm going to do is get that ready to show you how hard the A3 is going to hit. Remember, we were doing about a total of 60 or 70K when we were hitting that target on the right. So now let's see how the A3 is going to compare to the A1 and the A2. I'm going to guess that it's going to hit way harder. And I haven't tested this at all yet, I promise. If you made me put a guess on it, I'm going to guess when we put that same exact gear on and we hit the same exact champion in the same exact scenario, I'm going to guess the A3 hits for 93,000 is my guess. So, okay, let's swap this out and get ready. Okay, here we go. We've got the gear swap complete. The exact gear that was on the Sir Nick is back on to Dreng, and let's go in the exact same scenario. Make sure we land the exact same debuffs, hit the exact same enemy, and let's test the A3, the single target. So let's go over Spirit Affinity, and it's always towards the front. Whenever you're trying to find like a specific champion, the newer ones released to the game, it's sorted by like rank, affinity, and all that level. And then the last tiebreaker is user ID, or not user ID, but champion ID. So the numbers keep going up, and then they go in descending order by default. So your newest champions are always going to be towards the front. That's why you see Dreng and then Hellcath and all of the new champions kind of coming to the game. So let's put this in, get the exact same scenario. And what did I guess? I guessed 93 for how hard the A3 was going to hit. Let's place the debuffs. And here we go. I have no way to prove that I'm not lying, but I swear this is my first time doing this. And let's see how close I was to 93. But we're hitting for like 60 or 70k with the other abilities in total, and I expect the A3 to hit harder. Hopefully it hits super hard and justifies building in for damage. We are ignoring a lot of defense, so it could be higher than 93. 95, almost 96. Okay, so not super ridiculous, but definitely hits all right. But you know, a little bit disappointing. It'd be nice to have that hit for like over 100 and be super insane, especially with the AOE being 70. So now let's go ahead and wrap up this discussion in terms of can he hit or be a super crazy damage dealer or not. So alrighty, in conclusion, I think he's all right. You know, I do think with the power creep of the game, I would say my initial reaction is a little bit disappointed in his damage output, but it's not awful. It's just not like it's not something to get excited about. It's not like a Magnar where you're like, holy cow, this dude can nuke. It's more like, he's all right. He can do a decent amount of damage, but when you couple it with the irresistible HP burn and the different utility that he kind of brings with the HP balancing and stuff like that, he's definitely not trash or horrible. I always recommend going for as many fragments as you can get for reasons that I've discussed before in my videos, kind of talking about when the fragments go live, because you never know, even if you miss out by a little bit, you might be able to finish him in the future. But I am gonna get to work here while we still have access to the test server in trying to hopefully get time to build like an infographic and do like a full deep dive discussion on him. I just wanted to make sure and get this video out right away this morning here as we lead into the fragment launching, because a lot of people are going to be asking for some context into if this guy can nuke, does he hit hard, does it make sense to build in for damage, and how is all of that shaken out. The DPS is always a hot topic in gaming in general, so this was kind of a fun little experiment to compare him to a champion we're all familiar with, and he's kind of hitting about the same as Sir Nick, but he does have that one extra single target hard hitting ability on top of that. So let me know what you think down below, and always fun to hear your perspectives. So yeah, that'll do it for me on this one. As always, thanks for watching. Have a good rest of your day. Peace.